That's motherfucking science. That's motherfucking science.
For most of scientific history, viruses have been argued over. They've oscillated between being described as alive and not necessarily. The more well-known viruses contain a capsid and envelopes around this protein casing made of parts from or mimicking the host cellular membranes, a cloak. They need proteins to bind to the host cell receptors, and then voila! It's like that time in Star Wars when they had the old security codes and they were gonna sneak into the Death Star. Viruses don't reproduce like traditional cellular life through mitosis or meiosis. They inject code into cell and hijack its machinery. They're significantly smaller than even bacteria. It's basically a minimalist biohacking self-contained assault unit. Giant viruses. Acanthamoeba polyphaga mimivirus, AMPV, or mimivirus for short, was the first discovered giant virus. It exists on a scale similar to smaller bacteria. The term mimi comes from it having eluded accurate scientific description for some time. 1992, in a study on Legionnaire's disease, it was discovered after a sample was stained. Researchers thought it was a gram-positive bacterium, and it was named Bradford-Coccus. It wasn't until 2003.
Seriously?
Researchers from France realized it was in fact a giant fucking virus. This is now considered a member of class of viruses nucleocytoplasmic large DNA viruses. The virus has a 2D, I would describe it as a hexagon, or in 3D, icosahedral capsid, the casing. It doesn't have an outer viral envelope like most viruses. These viruses have a large genome inside a lipid layer. The genome consists of linear DNA. DNA is more stable. RNA can depronate in alkaline conditions. This makes those retroviruses you're familiar with a distinct pain in the ass because of a lack of proofreading leads to higher rate of mutation, subsequently adaptation and evolution. Why does this matter? Our basic classification of life frequently excludes viruses. Now, we found large genome viruses that have instructions for a bunch of host proteins. There's even a type of virus that can infect these viruses. It's a virophage, just like bacteriophages infect bacteria. These larger encased collections of genetic construction data fundamentally challenge the concept that viruses are not alive. The big difference is simply they need to borrow components to replicate. So we refound mimivirus back in 2003. We've since found even larger types of giant viruses. This paper published in Nature Communications works at looking at 6 different strains of the Pandoravirus family. Pandoraviruses are unique and they possess very, very large genomes. In this paper, it was articulated 2.47 million base pairs with close to 1,400 genes. These viruses specifically infect a type of amoeba, and that's pretty much their home, inside the cytoplasm of an amoeba. It's like their Disney World.
I'm like, oh god, oh my god, What's
really interesting about these giant viruses is found when looking at their ORFs. Yeah, I got it from Wikipedia. It's a good example though. An ORF is an open reading frame. When you look at a stretch of base pairs, it's like the variations in the way you read the code. So that you find a start codon and a stop codon. It turns out that a majority of over 1,000 genes present, we have no fucking clue what they are. We don't know what all the genes in the animal kingdom do.
However,
we have a decent map of where they're distributed, and we know what a lot of them are for. These though, nope. The author proposes that its large genome size can't be completely explained by horizontal gene transfer, that's stealing information from other organisms, or just copying of the pre-existing genes. The author proposes these viruses possess an evolutionary path based on gene creation. What the fuck does that mean? An analogy would be taking your old Lego plane and, say, Lego alligator farm, and using those parts to build a Lego White Walker dragon. This is an interesting field of study because so many unique genetic mechanisms are at play here.
I'm gonna say
viruses are alive. I don't care about ribosomes. I don't care about ATP synthesis. I don't care about protein synthesis. One could argue that in this case, selecting an organism, say an amoeba, that is hardy enough to survive on timescales of billions of years, they have a more efficient game plan to existence than we do.
That's motherfucking science. That's motherfucking science.